So good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming today. It was a kind of a quick announcement of this lecture, so I'm excited to see so many people here. So as I'm sure you all know, I'm Ariel. I'm from the program office, and we have two very special people here today that you actually probably know already because they also work here. They're with Symbria Therapy. And so they're going to be talking to you today on mobility, agility, and fall prevention. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Jake and Brittany.
Thanks for the introduction, Ariel. Good morning, everybody. Like she said, my name is Jake. This is Brittany, and we're two physical therapists that work here at Otterbein under the Symbria contractor. We run the outpatient program, which is a little different than the inpatient and TCU unit here, and that's that we see anybody that's healthy off the street, right? So you're not coming from the hospital, you just have aches, pains, maybe relative deconditioning, maybe you came off of surgery but you went straight home. And so rather than going off campus to like Beacon Orthopedic or Tri-Health or something like that, you can come stay on campus and come see us here. And like I said, we see a variety of conditions, so anything from neurological conditions to orthopedic things. So just spread the good word. If there's anybody on campus you know that's going traveling or using a transport service to get their therapy, they could come right here. So we have a little bit of a presentation to give you today, like she said, on fall prevention. This is something that our company wants us to start doing a little more frequently. So if there's any topics or areas of study you think that you guys would like to learn a bit more about, kind of just let us know, stop by the gym. I'd be open to suggestion, and we'd love to put together something that you guys would benefit from. So what they have for us today is a pre-made PowerPoint, and Brittany and I are kind of going to riff off this and try to give you something actionable to take home and feel like it's maybe a little motivating to get you thinking a little bit more about your health and fitness and maybe fall prevention and take some actions to improve yourself. So.
Good. Okay. So how do we flip this? Okay, so we're going to start out with wisdom. I don't know George Burns, so we're going to give you our own wisdom. So pretty much just because you're getting older, it doesn't mean just to stay home and do nothing. You know, we're in a great community here with lots of activities available, lots of things to do, the YMCA, the pool, obviously therapy. They even do the exercise classes on the TV. So if you feel yourself declining, just always fight back and keep moving. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I like this opening slide here in that first quote they give. Too many people practice playing old. Something that I really liked about coming to Otterbein here, you know, I tell everybody this and I'm open about it because it's meaningful to me, but my forefathers didn't make it out of their late 60s, you know, early 70s. And I had kind of a distorted perception of what it looked like to be healthy into the older age. And I've met a lot of high functioning 80 and even 90-year-old men here, and it's really motivated me. And so it's kind of told me, like, if you want to get on the couch and be old and play grandpa as you get older, you're going to decondition quick. But a lot of these, I'm seeing guys out here at 8 in the morning playing pickleball as I'm driving around Circle Drive coming into work every day. And I think that's one of the best things you can do is just stay active in a social group, right, that motivates you to get out of bed in the mornings. You don't want to come to the gym, right, and you're involved in a task that force you to perform, so you're thinking about dietary habits, getting into bed at a good time, right? So just being involved in a task that forces you to use your body physically, you want that body to perform for you. So again, I just like that quote there, you don't need to practice playing old, stay young, let people say, oh, you're too old for that, right? I'd rather people be telling you you're doing too much than too little, so.
Cool. So on to the next. So this is pretty much, balance is important for your quality of life. You have to practice balancing, you have to be standing, you have to be walking. If you're not using your muscles to do so, then obviously you're going to run into issues. It's better to start working on your balance and strength before something happens instead of doing it after something happens. Okay, these are definitions, so I'm just going to read them right off the slides. We have balance, the ability to control your center of gravity or mass with respect to your base of support, whether your body is stationary or moving. We have agility, the ability to make controlled changes in direction without the loss of balance. And then mobility allows independent movement from place to place without extra effort or fear of falling. You have anything to say with that one? Good. All right. All right. Go for it.
I think I hit that slide. So yeah, there's a few just hard definitions here, and I'm trying to tell you guys the basics of what we learn in school, right? Going over fall prevention. A typical fall is going to have 3 different phases: initiation, detection, and recovery. But I want to kind of tie this into how it looks, what it looks like in the home, right? Fall prevention. Initiation is the beginning of the fall where you're beginning to slip. Well, let's think about how your home's set up as to whether or not you're even putting yourself at a risk for a fall. Throw rugs, for example, are something that's great for decorative pieces, but as you're using an assistive device or you're finding that your toes catching on something like that over time, rather than just going, well, it looks nice, I want to keep it here and risking a fall, let's change the home environment a little bit and get that stuff out of the way. I've had multiple people on my caseload this year as a result of tripping over throw rugs at home. Detection is a sense that you're going to fall, and I hear a lot of people say this, it's like you're going, but you can't do anything to stop it, right? It's almost happened slow motion. Well, kind of tying back to what I said earlier about staying involved in athletic pursuits, going to the gym, getting in the pool, your body, proprioceptive and kinesthetic awareness are 2 things that your body is using to know where you're at in space. And if your body is more dialed in, tuned in, right, as a result of training, you're not relatively deconditioned, your body is going to be so much more quick to create a response. Your motor cortex is telling you something's going on when you can say, oh, I know I'm going down, but it's not shooting the signal over to the muscles to fire unless you can create an action, right, a righting reaction to that. So, I have a 2-year-old daughter at home, and I'm seeing her righting reactions come into play already. And that's the same righting reactions that we have into older age. However, they kind of just decline, like I said, as a result of the muscle unit deteriorating. And then recovery, this is something I would work with you in the gym, but it just comes down to just overall physical capacity. Getting up off the ground is a very important skill to retain as we get older. Here in America, the deepest we ever sit is on the toilet a few times a day, but but this is very common to be able to get up and off the ground later into your years if you're growing up in other parts of the Western world. So just maintaining strength and conditioning is going to be a theme throughout this here. Balance is a higher level skill that requires, like I said, proprioception, kinesthetic awareness, and these are skills that require just having flexibility and strength. So you can't come into the clinic with me and expect to get better balance, so to speak, if you don't have any muscle or flexibility to begin with, right? We need the building blocks to even create that. So you need hardware to run the software, so to speak. And so just some basic or some bullet points here about things that tend to occur as we age, changes in gait velocity. That's actually an interesting one. I read a study going through school, and it's kind of a no duh, but the slower you walk, the higher your risk of mortality. So to look at just as grip strength, right? How quick you move and how strong you are is directly associated with how quickly our mortality rates. COVID, interesting enough, there is a direct link between muscle mass and mortality with COVID. And it's not that having big muscles makes you resilient to fighting off the virus. It's that if you get sick with the virus and you spend a week or 2 in bed, how much strength did you lose, right? And how quickly does your body hit a critical point to where it can't fight off infection? So you need to retain muscle as you get older. It's your 401k to speak. It's your investment in your body. But lower leg weakness leading to gait compensation. Everybody who's been through my clinic has had that blue wedge under their foot and they're stretching their ankle, because proper ankle dorsiflexion, which is when your toe comes back towards your knee, is important to balance and fall risk. And that's going to directly lend into shorter stride length and slower walking speed. People tend to just have these little shuffling steps with no arm swing. And although that's a great short-term strategy, it's a terrible long-term strategy, because that leads to further deconditioning that is the cause of all these issues in the first place.
Cool. Let's see. Okay, this one's pretty short. This is just a research study that indicated slower gait speed is a predictor of cognitive decline, just like Jake said with other situations. So if you keep moving, you're keeping your body in better health and your mind in better health. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Alzheimer's, I don't have any direct studies to pull from right now, but Alzheimer's is something that we're learning more and more about. I mean, there wasn't even any literature on this stuff 15 years ago. But what's interesting to know is there are so many different routes that lead to, it's dementia's the category, Alzheimer's is a specific type of dementia, But there are so many types of, every body system can lead to decay of the brain is what I'm trying to get at. And so your physical strength and your physical condition, so endurance and strength, are two very important things to maintain the function of your brain. I like to say we haven't fully converted into robots, so to speak. We carry our cell phones with us everywhere, and more we're involved in technology, but our bodies still respond to the basics here. Sunlight, proper diet, hydration, and exercise. And if you're not hitting all those different components, you're leaving food on the table and you're accelerating your risk of aging, when you could be doing something active to slow that. And so, postural strategies to control your base of support, which is just your base of support, your 2 feet when you're standing, it's your butt when you're sitting. And when you're trying to maintain your balance, we want to keep your center of mass, which is just the point of all your forces going down to the earth, over your base of support. And so with just standing, what Brittany's doing here, swaying, that's ankle strategy. That's what all of us use at rest, just to maintain our balance. And if you were on a force plate, you'd see a little sway. But as we get older, that sway becomes greater. And that's just a result of a little bit of deconditioning of the muscles, but also a loss of stability, or a loss of range of motion in the joints. And therefore, with a less range of motion, there's less surface area for the joint to move, less feedback to your brain about where you are in space. And so as soon as your ankle strategy can't meet the demand, you're going to use your hip strategy. And I want to give a quick example here, because none of this makes any sense unless you see someone about to fall and you see it in play. So the first one's an ankle strategy. And I'm kind of struggling here, but you can see if it's just a little sway, right? I can lean outside of my base of support and maintain my balance because of my ankle strategy. So things I have people do in the gym is, how far can you lean forward before you have to step, right? That's your ankle strategy. And so it's almost kind of like an inverted cone, right? I can lean around and get my head right outside of my base support, but my feet are fixed, right? As soon as that fails, you tend to see a hip strategy. Whereas if someone's about to fall, right, they kick their hip back. They're going this way and you kind of swing, right? But the hip strategy almost is non-existent in the elders I see fall here. It's almost just kind of like timber, right, or you melt to the ground. So as soon as your ankle strategy fails, you try to take a step. So ultimately all this is getting at is the ankle and hip strategy are so important so that you don't lose that balance. And so when you're in the gym with me, we're doing tons of hip strengthening and standing on foam pads and different things, but again, that's a higher level skill that we need to build towards. We need to even build to strengthen those muscles before we start testing them through their function. So, go ahead.
Good to go. All right. You pretty much covered that.
Yeah, individuals raising those. So yeah, it's just given building further off of that, and they're kind of giving some examples here. I like the examples they give because they're all activities I see residents engaging in campus. Cornhole, golf, and then pickleball versus tennis. I know that's the more friendly elderly version, but all those are examples of things I'd love for people to get involved in, and whether or not it's a sport-specific task, or it's just training at home, or it's training at the gym, or getting involved in Debbie and Don's classes there at the rec center. It just needs to be some sort of active pursuit here. So.
I didn't realize I put so many.
I guess I'll read through their practical application example here. So persons who are aging often lose their ability to raise and lower their center of gravity. I think that that's pretty straightforward too. We also struggle to sit and stand from the chair, right? So if you can sit and stand from the chair a little easier, it's going to be easier to come up and down. And that's just saying, can you break from the hips and knees and recover? If you can't break from the hips and knees and recover, you're going all the way down, right? You're more or less a tower of Jenga, just blocks stacked on top of each other, just bones in alignment. And as soon as your hip or knee goes to bend, if you can't control that motion and gravity pulls you all the way down, so it's important to train the body the way we'll use the body. So exercise doesn't need to be sexy or exciting. You don't need the new reformer or the new Pilates machine you see online, right? Training in your kitchen or off of your couch is just as good. I could show you how to modify movements to meet your level of function. Pushing and pulling are important functions yet rarely trained. So in the rec center, they have the seated row. I think that's the most friendly version because you're not going overhead. If you have bad shoulders, it'd still be appropriate for you. But again, I see a lot of faces that I've had in the gym. How many times do I put those bands in your hand and we're standing pulling on them, right? We need to maintain strength of your back muscles because that's supporting your spinal column. And the stronger you are in the midsection of your body, the better able you are to produce or resist and produce force. And yeah, so we can always, these exercises can all scale to a seated or supine position. So anybody lacking stability and strength, we train at a lower level. There's no set level of strength or condition you need to enter the game. All of this stuff can be scaled. And I think everybody looks to the high-performing senior around here going, oh, I wish I could be like that. I wonder what they're doing. It's not looking at what they're doing now. It's looking at what they did to get there, right? So the boring, less sexy version of training is what gets you to doing the higher level skills. So if you're seeing people playing pickleball out there and you want to get after it, but you're not quite sure you could handle that task, again, don't think that playing pickleball is going to make you better at that task. You need to train so you could perform it. This is great stuff that could transfer easily into the pool. I think forward, backward, side to side, of all those movements, backward's my favorite. Walking forward is a it's a controlled fall. And what I mean by that is your body is very efficient propelling itself forward. So there's very little muscle energy required to accelerate yourself. It's more of a deceleration thing, right? So I'm falling forward onto my foot each time. Whereas walking backward is mechanically inefficient. So if you can walk backward, you don't have your visual system to tell you where you're at in space. So you're relying more on your somatosensory system, which is just joint position sense. And then two, you are also making your quads, your knee extensors, and ankle dorsiflexors work much harder because they have to overcome the inefficient system and propel you backward. So if you get in the pool, I'd like to see some more people walking backward, side to side as well, not just forward. Circles and figure eights, every joint in the body is rotational, so just make sure you keep your rotational capacity. And diagonal movements. It's just, we don't want to move like action figures, right? Straight plane. We need to keep rotation at our hips and shoulders and ankles so that way we can age healthily, not wear our joints out, but then to maintain and keep our balance.
Okay. So we have some facts here, so I'll just read you the facts. Up to 50% of those between the ages of 55 to 65 do not participate in any form or movement or activity. Percentage is even higher for over 65. I think it's safe to say, hopefully these statistics are a little better in this community, because you're also looking at people living out in the general community. So there's a lot to do here, so hopefully people are out engaging with others and doing the activities. Inactivity leads to major strength deterioration, flexibility and balance, leading to an increased risk of falls, just like Jake was explaining. By a show of hands, if you're comfortable sharing, have any of you ever been in TCU? Or any other rehab like that. So our rule of thumb for every day spent in bed, or you could even think sitting at home, think of the times we just went through with COVID, it takes us at least 3 days of work to get that strength back. Well, it's not exactly the case for everybody, but it's a rule of thumb that we look at. So if you spend a week in a hospital bed, we know we're gonna need 3 times that amount of time to hopefully get your strength back and get you back on your feet. Let's see, physical activity has a major impact on decreasing fall risk, managing chronic conditions, and reducing depression and premature health. Do you want to touch base on this? No, I don't think so. Okay, all right.
I think this is just a case study, which is specific to our company. So I think this data was gathered at this facility likely and many others, the branch campuses around here. And I think they're just trying to give a little PR marketing here. If you come see us, you're likely to improve your level of function as assessed by these 3 metrics. So timed up and go. These are all timed up and go, 30-second sit to stand, and gait speed are all commonly accepted measurement outcome scales that I would run with you or any other practitioner would run with you to put you on a normal distribution, right? See, how are you functioning relative to your peers of the same age? And so timed up and go, as you stand up from a chair, You walk 10 feet, walk back, sit down, I clock you. If you're over 12 seconds, you're at an increased risk for falls and your accelerated aging for your demographic. Sit to stand, just stand up from a chair. Can you stand up without your hands? And if you can, how many times can you stand up in 30 seconds? We're gonna improve that, and gait speed as well. So I think those are pretty significant improvements, and I'll say that it's not uncommon to see that. It's generally, if you come to see me because you likely have not been exercising, you're gonna see a rapid improvement quickly. But the thing that kind of discourages people, and I think the reason people don't keep up with stuff on their own, is because there's diminishing returns for your efforts. But I don't want people to think that the exercise is no longer benefiting you because you're not making quick progress. Think about the fact that you're maintaining the progress you made, right? And then every incremental, every little bit you continue to gain there is as a result of, or on top of maintaining. So deconditioning is just something I'm getting at that we see globally across the facility, or across all populations here. It seems like therapy is just a revolving door for many, whereas I'd like to kind of change the narrative, get it to where you come to me for education and you're learning how to train appropriately for your age. And then it's something that you take ownership over and do on your own. So, keep it up here.
Let's see, I think I put myself on this one. Okay, like Jake was talking about, therapy. So you have physical therapy, we have occupational therapy. In the outpatient setting, we usually mostly see physical therapy, but they do have occupational and speech. Obviously, this is going to differ a little bit from setting to setting. Like I mentioned, TCU is going to be different than outpatient. When we see somebody in TCU, we have to think of how that person's going to get home safely. You do want to recover from being at the hospital, but it's really a big picture of how can you get to the bathroom safely? Can you dress yourself safely? Are you able to put your shoes on, and can you walk? Can you get out of bed? Can you get out of a chair? Like Jake was talking about, in outpatient, we're really training, we're working on strengthening and improving the quality of life. Let's see. So physical therapy, muscle strengthening, exercise, flexibility, stability, mobility, posture and core training. Occupational therapy, I just mentioned all of the activities of daily living. Outpatient also, we work a lot on pain. So we get a lot of back pain, different things like that, and that can also, it's often a result of a weak core and the stress and body mechanics you've used over time. Let's see. So well-being, we obviously want to focus on well-being for improving quality of life, moving more, will improve not only strength, balance, and independence, but we also want confidence, mental health, and overall living your best life. Let's see. Another statistic I'll just read. Data indicates people participating in well-developed fitness programs retain their functional independence for 2.7 years longer than non-participants. That's pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, if you're up moving a lot, doing more, then you're going to stay independent longer. So I'll let Jake do the closing, and if you guys have any questions for us.
So yeah, I think I'd just like to close out here by just giving a few thoughts, with respect to the things that I've seen over my 3 years here at Otterbein. This was the first job I took here out of school, and although I run a side practice, the majority of my clinical practice has been dealing with seniors 65 and older. 9 times out of 10, it seems like it's just general strength and conditioning or something that's a fall that led to an injury as a result of this issue. So balance is not it's not something that you can train independent of other areas of function, is what I'm trying to get at. You need strength and balance will come as a result of those things. So you don't need a special program, you just need to get moving if it's just something you want to improve upon. Start going for a walk if you're not walking daily. If you're already walking daily, let's think about adding a movement practice on. Maybe you do a few stretches at home or a few strengthening exercises. Exercising, I personally think exercising at home kind of stinks. It's like when I was studying in grad school. If I'm surrounded by all the comfort items in my home and I have to put myself in an uncomfortable state to create change, I'm kind of babying myself, right? But if I get myself to the gym, I'm surrounded by other people working hard, it's that much easier to push it. And what we need to get people doing is just moving more than they are now. So if you want to come down to the gym, I'd love to talk to you personally about ways I think I could help you, or at least kind of reach out to Debbie and Dawn at the rec center. You don't have to get a prescription to go see them. You can just kind of walk in. They'll start you on exercise that day, sign the waiver, and you're good to go. But I want to thank everybody for having come out today and listen to what we had to say. I hope it was helpful. And like I said, if there's ideas for future topics of discussion going forward, something you guys feel like you'd benefit from, or there's a need on campus, please come by and let us know. So we'd like to do a little better on our next presentation and kind of make this a quarterly thing as we're here. So
I did want to say one more thing. So Jake mentioned we do outpatient a lot together, but I also do TCU. And what I do notice in TCU is that often the patients it's a revolving door. The people we see, we'll see again in 3 months or 6 months. And it's because once they're safe enough to go home or their next setting, they just stop working. So all the work they did in TCU day after day, they just stop moving, they let it go. So if you're not going to continue on with home health therapy and then to outpatient therapy, just like Jake said, it's really good to go down to the YMCA or even use the pool or get out and walk, because I don't know if we'll end up changing that, but that is something we see a lot. And it's because people just, a lot of the times they stop moving. So as soon as they go home, they go right back to their old lifestyle, which didn't serve them in the first place. So we do have balance assessment. Oh, go ahead. Did you have a question? Okay. Jake.
I think he's got a mic for you. It's the front, in the front here.
Green shirt.
What about using the hiking poles when walking around campus?
As with respect to all assisted devices, it's not a crutch, in my opinion, to use a walker, cane, or any sort of assisted device to move
No,
around.
I'm talking about hiking poles, not a cane.
Yeah, I have no problem with people using hiking sticks. It's just as good as a cane or a walker or any other assisted device when appropriately fitted to you. The take-home for anything you're going to use, whether it's a stick in the yard or something you bought at a durable medical equipment store, is it's fitted to you so that you can walk normally. If you have to walk with a compensated gait pattern, you're putting wear and tear on the body in a way it wasn't designed for over time, which is fine for today, but it's not great for a year's worth of walking and mobility, right? It's going to lead to things breaking down quicker. But two, we need to normalize your gait pattern so that way you can be more active. So that's what it comes down to. Use something that enables you to walk safely and freely, improve your endurance, get your strength up, and then use specific balance training to pick up the slack. Like if you're not good on standing on one leg, don't think walking without your walker or cane is going to get you there quicker. There's too much risk associated with going down and hurting yourself. So the risk behind hip fractures at your age is very scary, right? There's a mortality rate as high as 90% 2 years out after a hip fracture for most folks. So.
You have encouraged me very much today, Jake, and you have. I've had 3 sessions with Jake for a tremors in my arm or something, a nerve problem.
Radiculopathy.
And I already have an exercise that I can do, and I do it all the time now, that takes that away. And I really appreciate that. And I want to say that my encouragement is that my devotional exercises that I just did for OLN, all the objectives that you have given are my objectives too, to help the mind improve along with movement, just simple movements. And the only one I can't do, or I can't do it for the other people, is because this is directed to people who are sitting or lying down, and I can't get them up and down.
Yeah.
And that's important. I saw that on your screen, and I know it's important, but I can't do that one with them. So anybody tune in whenever, I don't know whenever Kevin puts it on, and it's just to get you to move. That's the important thing. That's the first thing.
Thank you, Wanda. I appreciate it.
Good. All right. Are you all-
I think there's one more question here.
I feel like you did a really good job.
Thanks. And yeah, if you don't want to ask a question in front of everybody, please understand we're just down the hall. If you walk out these doors, take a left, therapy gym's right there. I see people all day 9 to 5 there, so stop on by.
Good morning.
Morning.
Do you need a prescription to have your services?
So yes, anybody who's going to use their Medicare insurance requires a prescription. Physical therapy outside of that is direct access in Ohio, so you wouldn't need it, but it's really easy. A lot of times you can call your doctor over the phone, skip going in the office, and they'll fax an order over. So,
Thank you.
yeah. Is that all the questions? So yeah, if you guys want to stick around, like I said, we can run some assessments for you guys to let you know a relative fall risk if you'd be interested to do so. I think the tests we'll run are timed up and go, sit to stand, and a Tenetti or a Berg assessment. So if you're interested in that, otherwise, thank you guys for coming in. Have a great rest of your day.